This is David Widmar, one of the principals of Ag Economic Insights, or Agricultural Economic Insights. I want to make sure we get all the formal names out there. But David, you all have attempted and have done a project that I think many folks will find interesting. There's been so much discussion of the current state of the farm economy. How does it relate to the 80s? And you all did a deep dive into that.
Yeah, it's a question we get asked a lot, almost every time we're speaking to a producer group. How does today compare to the 80s? And it's a hard question. In some cases, it's very similar. The fall of net farm income, high levels of farm debt, a trade situation gone belly up. But on the other hand, it can't be more different with inflation and interest rates. And so it's been interesting. How do we tell that story? And we've been writing a blog post for years and writing behind on AEI Premium, but it's hard to tell that story. So we partnered, Brent Gloy, my business partner, and I partnered with Sarah Mock, a rural freelance reporter, and we're telling the story of escaping 1980. It's what were the pieces that led up to that fretful period in that decade of challenges in the farm financial economy, but also the key lessons and what can we learn or what shouldn't we learn from that period and how do we move that forward. I think one of the things to keep in mind is we all are living with lessons from the 1980s. Either we grew up and experienced them personally, or we've grown up hearing the stories. So the 1980s casts a long shadow, and we have to be really careful with how we think about that and how we can navigate that for 2020 and beyond.
If folks want to grab that podcast and also look at some of the offerings that AEI has, your company, how can they access those?
Well, the easiest way is our website, aei.ag. They can sign up for the free weekly newsletter. The podcast links are available, or also our services, our subscription. But Escaping 1980, again, is a 7-part podcast series. We're dropping a weekly episode. We're on episode 3 this week. Those are available for free anywhere you listen to podcasts. So Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also just Google search that and it comes right up. I'm biased, but I think it's unique. I don't think anything else out there like this in ag. We worked really hard to try to tell this story. And it's funny because we initially thought, how will we ever fill 7 episodes? And now we're getting people calling us and emailing us saying, what about this? And what about that? Or you should have elaborated on this. So it's funny how when you start to look back at those 2 decades, really the 70s and the 80s, a lot happened in American history, but also agricultural history.
With insight in your name, I have to ask this, looking at 2021, bearish or bullish looking at production agriculture?
It's a different tone just from the last few weeks. And so one of the questions we're asking producers is, what's the probability of the December 2021 corn contract getting over $4.25? It's around $4 a bushel. So can we get a rally? On one hand, it seems it's pretty likely, right? We've had a dollar rally in the last few months. But we're trying to encourage producers, in light of all this uncertainty, is to ask themselves critical questions. Stop asking questions like, will corn rally? What's the probability of this size of a price change being possible in this time frame? And that's going to help them sort through the uncertainties, look for the key insights and implications. I think if we're thinking about 2021, we have to realize 2020 has been impacted by strong usage, which is positive, but also a production cut. And those production cuts aren't guaranteed next year between prevent plant and below trend yield. So we got to keep that in mind.
David, we appreciate all those insights on everything that's going on. Again, encourage folks to go and download the podcast as well. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ken.
David Widmar with Agriculture Economic Insights has joined us. Stay with us. More coming up.